Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the JD Rucker Show. If you are watching the evening show, which starts at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, then awesome. If you're watching the daytime show, which starts at various times depending on what's happening in the news, then that's awesome as well. But either way, you should find me wherever you want to find me, whatever platforms you use, Rumble, X, YouTube, BitChute, all the various networks, all the various areas where the show's broadcast. You can find all those, plus my websites, plus my socials, and even my sponsors. You can go to jdrucker.com/find, jdrucker.com/find. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. You're listening to the JD Rucker Show. Let's begin. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of the JD Rucker Show. So glad that you joined me for this special daytime edition of the show. I usually don't come out during the day, at least not on on here. I'm usually doing work. But after an extraordinarily busy end of last week and weekend, I've been able to get caught up. And so I'm here. Hi. Pope died. Pope Francis has died, and that is sad news. Whether you liked him or not, anytime anybody dies, it is sad, and especially somebody as prominent, somebody as beloved. Because if you're a Catholic or not a Catholic, if you liked him or didn't like him, if you agreed with him or didn't agree with him, it's still his death, his passing is still very consequential, very sad to millions, perhaps billions of people. And it does bring us to a real potential turning point for the Catholic Church. Who are they going to select for the next pope? Is it going to be somebody as left-leaning, as woke as Pope Francis was, or are they going to lean to somebody who's more traditional, more conservative? We will see. That will determine a lot, though, because I know that the Pope has had many attempts at influencing global politics, and he's been successful at it for much of his career. So we will see. I'm just trying to keep it. He died, and just trying to not express anything beyond that. It's too soon. We will hope and pray that the Catholic Church is able to become stronger and perhaps more traditional, more biblical in the future. And again, when I say the Catholic Church, I'm definitely not talking about if you're a Catholic. That's an individual thing. I'm talking about the Vatican. Okay, let's call it what it is. The Vatican has been extremely woke compared to past versions of the Vatican. Under Pope Francis, they were woke. So I know I said I wasn't going to talk about it. Here I am talking about it. It's been throughout this craziness. I've also been in the process of fasting, and I've been fasting a water fast where I drink just my wonderful Promise Grounds coffee and water. And that's it. Oh, and Earl Grey tea. Make it so. And then, of course, some electrolytes, but no food, no calories, other than the 5 grams of calories or whatever, 5 calories that you get with coffee. Other than that, I have been calorie free since late Wednesday night. So we'll say Thursday, all day Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and now today I am on my 5th day of fasting, and I feel great. I've done this before. I've fasted before. I had an incident, actually. Not really. I had what I thought was an incident because my ketone levels jumped up to like above 5, and according to Google, I was in a danger zone. I should go to the hospital immediately. I later found out that you can actually go up to well over 5. I forgot the gentleman's name. There's a doctor who he even did it himself, and he showed his results, and he was up like 6.5 or something like that. And he's, yeah, it's getting up there, but everything was fine. So, but I am keeping track of everything, staying hydrated, staying positive, and staying busy. That is the key, I think, to being able to fast, is staying out of the kitchen. I almost had a couple of incidences. I'll admit it. Somebody had a bowl of popcorn for a movie, and I grabbed one. I was like, whoa! Almost ate it. Almost ate it. I am, for those who don't know, I have been for a couple of months now trying to really improve my status, my physical status, my weight. I am large, and I'm trying to make myself not as large. I'm trying to become healthier. And I've been on the ketogenic diet for a while now. The challenge that I've had, and the reason that I have to do these fasts, I have to exercise, I have to work out, the reason that's the only way that I'm able to get down, I'm down about 12 pounds or so. The only reason I'm able to do that, or the only reason I have to do that, even being on the ketogenic diet, it's because I married the greatest cook in the world. I mean, you would think, because she gets everything is organic or regenerative. She's just no ultra processed foods. Everything is just, very, very real and very awesome and very amazing. And she just is so good at cooking, which is amazing because she wasn't in the beginning. I did most of the cooking, 3 decades ago. But now she has far usurped any clout that I thought I had in the kitchen. She's the best cook I've ever known. Like, literally, I'm not just saying that to appease her. She doesn't watch my show anyway. but yeah, she's the best cook, and as a result, I tend to overeat. See, I have my problem. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs. I don't have any of those like standard vices, I guess you could say. But I love food. And I love food to the point of it being sinful. I'm a glutton. Okay. And I know that's not really it's not a sin. Anyway, point being is that I do have a tendency to overeat, if you couldn't tell. But we're changing that. Doing my fast now. Eating healthy when I'm off the fast. Continuing to do basic exercises. I don't go to the gym to work out, but I do curls. I have my treadmill. I'm trying to walk at least 2 miles a day, sometimes 4 or 5 miles a day. I'll get up there. Eventually, I'll get to good 5-10 miles a day. That's the intention. I've got my treadmill here at my desk. It's like an under desk treadmill, and my desk can raise up so I can do that. I know I'm babbling a lot, and if you watch my show often, you probably know that I never really talk about personal things. But this is one of those times where, because this is a journey in many ways, it's important to me to share it. Not just for me. I mean, it's great to get encouragement, of course, but also for those out there who maybe you thought you couldn't do it. I know fasting is very challenging for a lot of people. It's not challenging for me. I wish I could say, oh, it's been so hard. As long as I don't make a mistake and just grab something, I just go. I've been blessed with a body that has that capability. I can fast and take my mind off it, just stay busy, and don't worry about it, and keep going. And then another day's down. Just keep marking off the days until I'm done fasting, which I believe will be. I'll have to check my calendar. I think it's tomorrow, but I think I might actually extend it to Wednesday. But point is that I know that it can be very challenging for people, so I want to throw it out there. This is the first time, I think, probably in my life, the history of the show, that I'm offering a personal tidbit about JD Rucker. So if you have any questions, if you want to see what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, get some maybe tips if you've ever considered it. I'm a big fan. I've studied this profusely. I mean, I know a lot about the deep state. Okay. I know a lot about the economy. I am getting to the point where I know a lot about foreign affairs. And when it comes to fighting and battling wokeness, I consider myself to be an expert. But I'm quickly becoming an expert on ketosis, on fasting, on metabolic rates, getting down all of the right levels, or getting up the right levels, getting down the wrong levels, all that good stuff. It's been actually a very educational thing. I didn't realize. I mean, I would argue that if you are Gen X, I would argue that our parents, well, we can start with the government. The government led them astray, and then our parents led us astray, and then we started leading our kids astray. Many of us did. I've had the blessing of having kids over a period of 4 decades. So every decade we have a kid. And true story. And as a result of this, I can say that our newest kid, our youngest one, is eating far better than my first one. Thankfully, my first one is also brilliant, and he's able to take care of himself very nicely. He was able to see a lot of this stuff before we did, but now, for at least the last several years, we have been trying very hard to eat healthy, live healthy. And I would argue that if you are my age, chances are your parents are telling you, hey, yeah, eat cereal or oatmeal for breakfast, or here's a cereal bar, it's like load up on sugar. Oh, don't eat too much fat. Everything low fat, no fat, That was, and I'm going to have to do a show on it now that I've said it. I'm going to have to do a show, or at least a segment about the lies surrounding, for example, cholesterol, the lies surrounding fats, the lies surrounding sugar. Not all of it has been lies, but a lot of it was. And I need to, thankfully, I think a lot of people already know this. A lot of people are really coming around to understanding what's happened, how this works, how big food, big pharma, big ag, big whoever, how over the years and decades, they were able to control a lot of the quote-unquote science. Even back then they were saying trust the science, but they were saying it for a different reason. They didn't tell us anything. And it's funny because a lot of the stuff that I've been able to learn hasn't come from watching videos of nutritionists and gurus and keto experts and all that stuff. I've gotten a lot from that too. But a lot of it has come from having an understanding of a biblical style of diet. And I know it sounds crazy, but believe it or not, there's some food wisdom in the Bible that I think can be pulled out, and it's a project that I will be engaged in here very soon, Lord willing. But not today. Today, we've got a lot of stuff going on. I actually did pre-record some segments over the weekend just to make sure, because I really wanted to make absolutely sure that even if I couldn't get everything caught up, that I had an early show on Monday, because we really want to have 2 shows. The intention here is to have my 9 p.m. show every night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, but also to have a daytime show. And as many of you know, we've been talking to a couple of networks about coming on, and I think that it would not be fair to give them the same show. So doing an hour in the day and an hour at night seems to make a lot of sense, at least to me. Yesterday was Easter. Happy Easter to everybody. Google didn't wish Happy Easter to anybody. They gave us a generic homepage. And that is the story that we'll start at. Before we get to that story, though, I do have to shout out. You can drink coffee if you're fasting. You just can't put any cream or sugar in it. And I drink Promise Grounds coffee. Promise Grounds coffee comes from a Christian company out of Texas. It's a great company, and it's fantastic coffee. My favorite coffee of all time. You can go to jdrucker.com/coffee, jdrucker.com/coffee, and check out Promised Grounds. Google, which celebrates every single fake woke holiday, goes generic for Easter. This is an unambiguous, undeniable snub. Really, it's an attack in a lot of ways, but it's a passive-aggressive attack, we'll say. This is Google telling Christians that the most important holiday for many of us is not even worth putting up a doodle or whatever they call them on Easter. They're insulting you. If you're a Christian, they're insulting you. And if you're not a Christian, they're insulting you too, because this is something where, I mean, they're willing to post their little Google Doodles on every single possible holiday. I mean, they post them, a different one for Kwanzaa, okay? But for Easter, they're going to leave it generic, blank. That's an attack. Well, let's look at it. This comes to us from Right Angle News Network on X. Google has snubbed 2.6 billion Christians by leaving their homepage, which they traditionally decorate for every holiday, completely blank for the Christian holiday. And we can see what they did for Pride Month. And Wokeness posted, there's a picture, another screenshot of the Google homepage on Easter. And there's a screenshot of the Google homepage for Pride Month. A very, very stark difference, of course. They will make it bold and brave and whatever for any of the woke holidays. But when it comes to the biggest holiday for many Christians, they decided to just say, nah, we don't care about you. As a matter of fact, we hate you. And that's what it comes down to. I mean, this type of passive-aggressive attack against Christians, it does come down to a pure hatred. They don't want to acknowledge us. They want to pretend like we are not here. They'll take our money. Okay? They love it when you buy their Android phones. They love it when you use their search engine. They love it when you use any of their thousands of products, many of which you probably don't even realize are owned by Alphabet, which owns Google. Yeah, they're cool with your money. They're cool with your eyeballs. They're cool with trying to indoctrinate you and get you to do horrible things, such as vote Democrat. But by golly, when it comes to just doing the simple, basic, I mean, it would have taken some intern, 15 minutes to put up a decent Google Doodle to celebrate Easter. They gave us the middle finger. California bill would prioritize illegal aliens for disaster relief. I've been out here in California for nearly 2 decades now, and they still surprise me all the time with their lunacy. We're just coming off one of the greatest disasters in state history. Of course, disaster relief is still ongoing, still needs to be sped up. There's still more help to be done. And there are a lot of people, both illegal aliens as well as American citizens, who are struggling. Now, if they'd come up with a bill that said, hey, you know what, we're going to prioritize American citizens, we're going to get to illegal aliens as soon as we can, but we're going to prioritize American citizens because they're our people. We got to take care of them first. Okay, that would have made sense. I would love that. I would have totally supported that. If they had said, you know what, we're going to suspend anything as far as illegal alien, citizen, whatever. We're just going to go in, we're just going to help everybody equally and then sort it all out at the end. Fine. I would accept that. I wouldn't approve. I would still rather focus on Americans. Sort of makes sense. But you know what? I would accept that, hey, we're going to treat them equally. But they went all the way to the opposite side of sanity. They're going to prioritize illegal aliens for disaster relief. This article comes to us from Kenneth Schrupp over at thecentersquare.com. We have it cross-posted over at AmericanPoliticalReport.com. A new California bill would prioritize illegal immigrants for taxpayer-funded disaster aid, warned California Assemblymember Carl DeMaio from San Diego. AB 262, authored by Assemblymember Jessica Collazo from Los Angeles, would require California to prioritize local agencies that are not eligible under federal law due to their inability to meet the minimum damage threshold of $1 million to unlock federal disaster funds. According to DeMaio, you are carving out the authority for state funding to go to illegal immigrants. The bill would allow the Director of Emergency Services to prioritize funds for people who are not here legally. Collazo responded by saying natural disasters impact all people who live in the area, and I don't disagree. Like I said, if they wanted to say treat everybody equally, great, fine. We should be prioritizing our citizens for disaster relief because they are here legally. They were whatever. But again, they went in the exact opposite direction. I get it. People are hurting. Okay, and I'm very thankful for not having participated in that. Plus, I have friends and relatives in Los Angeles. None of them were affected either. But we have to have some sanity here in this state. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm going to get a little rude probably, but blowing it here should be impossible. I mean, California is the easy button. You got the weather, you got the agriculture, you've got the people, okay, and you've got the money. So how could there be decades of failure, compounding upon decades of failure in a state that, if it were a nation, it would have the 5th largest GDP in the world? There are nations, hundreds of, over nearly 200 nations, that have less money than California. And we wonder why they keep failing. It's because of bills like this. It's because they really don't care about the people that are here. All they care about is their own causes. And right now, unfortunately, for those of us living in California, their primary cause is for open borders and to help the illegal aliens to flourish. Having non-politicians running the administration is delivering maximum success for America. I would argue that in President Trump's first term, which was good, but it wasn't great. It was good. During President Trump's first term, the thing that prevented it from being great, where there's really two things. Number one, his inexperience. He didn't know what he didn't know. He didn't realize how deep the swamp was, how pervasive and evil and strong the deep state was and still is. He didn't understand that. And so he knew he didn't understand that, so he surrounded himself with people that had political savvy, political know-how. They were supposed to be able to help navigate the swamp and all that stuff for him. But unfortunately, I would say over half of them were not doing it for him. They were not trying to achieve his agenda. They were trying to achieve their own agenda. And in some cases, people such as John Kelly and Mike Pence, they were actually there to subvert President Trump's agenda. He was facing headwinds from within as well as, obviously, from the outside. Well, fast forward to his second term. Obviously, he's far more experienced, far more resolute and appreciative of his situation. He understands his enemies, and he is trying to fight them while also trying to bring America back from the brink where Joe Biden took us, or his handlers and his globalist elite cabal puppet masters, where they took this nation. So, yeah, he's more experienced, but he's also surrounded himself with far, far better people. I would give his cabinet so far and non-cabinet leaders, I would give them an A. And on the verge of an A+. They can just get a little bit more. There's been some disappointments. I would say that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel have not really done enough, not even close. But then I would say people like Elon Musk, Tom Holman, non-politicians, non-bureaucrats, or at least they don't have... They're not bureaucratic in nature. They have done phenomenal jobs, as have others. And they're continuing, by the way, to add more people. Show host Lance Wallnow, and if you're not listening to him, you should be, did what I consider to be a very excellent explanation of why this is the case.
You got two business guys God put in there. Mm-hmm. Trump's business, Elon business. Thank God. Not politicians, not lawyers, and not bankers. Typically, most politicians are, you ever notice, they're lawyers
or bankers.
They're not business people. Business people have a very practical brain. It's Abrahamic. It's how do you make money work, and how do you leverage talent and time? Boom. They're looking at this thing like business people, and thank God we've got business people evaluating government inefficiency.
Yeah, and they're taking a loss to join them. We just got news that Dan Bongino is now going to be joining the FBI.
You're not in our business, a podcast. You have no idea what that means. You know what happened is Sebastian Gorka has been pressuring him. Come on, Dan. Come put away the microphone, Dan. And they're friends, and he was really calling him out. The country needs you. The president needs you. And he wanted to get him in Secret Service, like running Secret Service for Trump. Dan owns a percentage of Rumble. He's got 1 million people a day.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He's walking away from millions of dollars in order to serve. Elon is walking away from his multi-million-dollar enterprises in order to serve. Trump walked away from his billionaire lifestyle in Mar-a-Lago in order to serve. Ladies and gentlemen, you're not going to hear this from most people. These guys are acting like ministers of the gospel in that they're setting their own personal protection, reputation, and wealth aside to serve America. We're back to the founders.
Yeah, their lives,
this is a new founding father team.
Yeah, they pledge their lives, their liberty, their sacred honor.
You're doing it. You're reading my mind. And they're pledging it They've got enemies. They have to increase security. They don't care because there's something about America, the United States, that in the mind of God has enough value that God is calling on three secular. Here's another thing. You're not talking about three born-again, spirit-filled Christians that understand deliverance and all that stuff. Our prayers are activating God in such a way that the sovereign God is sovereignly calling secular Cyruses to come do his bidding, and if I dare say it, to do what the church isn't doing for the sake of the church.
Amen to that, brother. You know, it does bring up a good point. It's not just politics. It's not just Washington, D.C. The church, which is arguably far more important as far as truly making America great again, because we can't be made great again without revival, that these non-politicians that are also influencing the church, perhaps they can have a turnaround moment, just like what we're seeing in Washington, D.C., perhaps even better. We need it. This nation is not driven by politics. It's not driven by culture. It is driven by the Bible. It always has been. And if we ever turn our back fully on that, the nation is going to sink. Do gold companies really give away, quote-unquote, free or bonus silver when you open up a retirement account with them? The answer is no. It's not truly free. They're not actually taking $10,000 worth of silver and sending it to you in exchange for a $299 processing fee or something like that. The math doesn't add up. Here's how the math actually works, and I'm going to use a very basic version. These are not real numbers, but this is an easy way to illustrate it. Let's say, for example, that you're going to buy $100,000 worth of gold and silver, and you're going to put this into your retirement account. Now, that gold and silver that they're selling to you for $100,000, it might cost, just picking a random number, $70,000 to them. That's their cost on it, okay? But they can sell it to you retail for $100,000. What they do, though, to give you the quote-unquote free silver, is that they take that $70,000 worth of silver and gold, and they take $10,000 worth of it, retail, not wholesale, $10,000 worth of it. So you're getting $80,000 worth of silver and gold, $10,000 of it going to you, $70,000 of it in your account, but they're able to show it in your retirement account as $100,000. Why? Because, again, they're showing the retail value, not the wholesale value. They're making, whatever, $20,000 in that scenario off of the transaction. And the gold or the silver that you got that was free, you actually bought it. It's just included in the price. That the $70,000 worth of silver that's left in your account, they're just pretending like it's $80,000. It's very similar to, for example, throwing in a free toaster with a purchase of a big screen TV or whatever. It's not really free. It's baked into the cost of the big screen TV. They're not losing money on your behalf just so that they can get their $299 processing fee. They're smart, and it's a very effective tactic. That's why 95% of the gold companies in America today use this tactic to try to entice you into working with them. I work with a company, on the other hand, that does not employ such schemes. They sell you the gold and silver, put it into your account, they make it very easy, and they make it to where you could actually make money off of gold and silver. It all depends upon the market. I'm not a financial advisor, and I'm not predicting that gold and silver are going to go up, but let's face it, look at the numbers ever since President Trump has been elected. Even before he was elected, gold and silver prices were going up, and now that we are in the midst of a trade war, now that we're looking at other financial considerations that are affecting the stock market, affecting cryptocurrencies, affecting real estate, and yes, affecting gold and silver, it seems as if gold and silver have bright futures, which is why I think that anyone who wants to protect their retirement, their wealth, their life savings, they can do a tax-free rollover or transfer from their current retirement account into a gold IRA. But not all gold IRAs are made the same. The company that I recommend, you can find them at jdrgold.com, jdrgold.com. They will make it easy. They will make it very straightforward. They will help you to know exactly what you're buying, exactly what's going to be in your account, and how to manage it and service it from now until whenever you need it. And they'll do so without offering you any schemes like $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 worth of free silver. They respect you enough that they're not going to try to pull any schemes like that. JDRgold.com. Stephen Miller obliterates Senator Chris Van Hollen over his trip to El Salvador to visit the quote-unquote Maryland man. Yes, Stephen Miller is proving to be arguably the best representative for the administration when it comes to certain aspects of foreign affairs, especially deportations. Of course, Tom Homan, the border czar, does a fine job himself, and he's pretty much flawless when he's making his defense. But when it comes to adding in the legal matters, which obviously with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the legal matters are front and center in the news today. The Democrats and legacy media have attached themselves to the quote-unquote Maryland man, the Maryland dad, the accused wife beater, the confirmed MS-13 member. That's who the legacy media and Democrats want to embrace. And Senator Chris Van Hollen took that embrace to the next level by actually flying down to have margaritas with the guy. Well, Stephen Miller addressed this issue with the press and pretty much obliterated any notion that Chris Van Hollen is actually serving America's best interests.
Conversation with Abrego Garcia. What's your response? I'm almost at a loss for words for how outrageous it is. Here's an individual, the man who has been deported to his home country of El Salvador, who has been repeatedly documented by multiple federal and state authorities to be a member of MS-13, one of the most violent and ruthless criminal organizations on planet Earth, which is now a designated foreign terrorist organization, and an individual who has been incredibly implicated in human smuggling and human trafficking, an individual who is a documented woman beater, somebody who has viciously assaulted a woman in ways that shock the human conscience. That is who the Democrat Party is going to provide aid, solace, and comfort to, not to Senator Van Hollen's own constituents, like the Morin family. Rachel Morin was viciously beaten, brutally raped, and murdered, and her mother never even got a phone call from Senator Van Hollen. Or Kayla Hamilton, a young girl who was attacked in a public restaurant, raped in the bathroom, and beaten to death and murdered by an illegal alien that Joe Biden set free into the country. None of those people elicit human sympathy from Senator Van Hollen. How broken is that man's heart? How broken is his conscience that he doesn't have even an ounce of empathy or time or concern to share with those families? Or how many of his citizen constituents have been killed by the fentanyl that Joe Biden allowed into this country, by the cartels that made a fortune off of human trafficking and smuggling into this country, or the children in his state that cannot even get a good education or good health care because of the mass migration that has occurred into his state? None of that concerns him in the least. You know, his heart is reserved for an illegal alien who's a member of a foreign terrorist organization. I'm beyond appalled.
Like I said, total obliteration. Look, I'm going to disagree with Stephen Miller on one point, and I understand the sentiment. You know, it's good messaging, but he said that Chris Van Hollen's heart is with Kilmar Abrego Garcia and illegal aliens and MS-13 gang members. It's not true. Chris Van Hollen's heart is with Chris Van Hollen. He saw this as an opportunity. You know, you have legacy media out there calling him Maryland man, and well, he's from Maryland. He's one of the senators in Maryland. So he's like, let's latch onto this and see where it takes us. And where he wants it to take him is to the White House. Rumors are that he does have presidential aspirations. So he saw this as something that he had to do. He's latched onto this. Of course, he made that choice to latch on before finding out, or maybe he knew and didn't care, before finding out that Kilmar Abrego Garcia had 2 restraining order attempts by his loving wife, who's out there talking about how wonderful of a man and father he is. Apparently, he used to beat the crap out of her. And she went to the authorities at least twice that we know of to try to stop it. We also now have further confirmation, not that we need it anymore, but we have further confirmation dropped on Friday that, yes, Kilmar Abrego Garcia is a member of MS-13. Confirmed, reconfirmed, confirmed again. And, of course, Legacy Media does their thing and say, well, there's no proof. Show us the proof. Well, here's the proof. Okay, but that's not proof. Show us the proof. What? Idiots. Idiots. We're surrounded by idiots. Kudos, though, to Stephen Miller. Like I said, he really is becoming the best representative for the White House, for the Trump administration, when it comes to dealing with the legal aspects of the deportations that apparently, the latest poll shows, 56% of Americans, that's exactly what they want. Majority of Americans now support mass deportation of all illegal aliens, not just the gang members, not just the criminals, not just the violent ones, not just the terrorists, all of them. And this is a shift that I'll admit I would not have expected it to get this high so quickly. And even though the poll itself shows 56%, considering that it's coming from the Washington Post and CNN, we can assume that that number is much higher. Probably, I would guess, somewhere around 62 to 65% of Americans now favor mass deportation of all illegal aliens. That's huge. It's a big, big deal. We have the story over at AmericanPoliticalReport.com. Willow Toll reporting on behalf of Natural News. A new Washington Post CNN poll shows 56% of Americans now support deporting all 11 million illegal aliens. Now, let's stop right there. We know that the number is not 11 million. They were saying 11 million back during the 2004 presidential election. I've heard reports, stretch reports, that it could be as many as 50 million. I've heard credible reports that it's about 30 million. So let's say somewhere between 20 and 50 million illegal aliens in the United States right now. Back to the article, a significant increase, that 56% is a significant increase from 38% in 2016. The shift reflects growing alignment with President Trump's hardline immigration stance, emphasizing national security and economic concerns. Support does cross party lines. 86% of Republicans, 58% of independents, and even 25% of Democrats favor mass deportation of all illegal aliens. Now, that last number, the 25%, is very telling, and it's something that we need to really focus on. What is our takeaway? What is our action item here? Is that we have to continue to expose the realities of the illegal alien problem here in the United States. We're heading in the right direction. President Trump, Tom Holman, they are doing the right thing. Kristi Noem doing the right things. Okay, we need more of it, admittedly. I would argue that we're not moving fast enough, but with that said, we're only heading in the direction, but there's still a deep attachment to supporting illegal aliens by the Democrats, especially the Democrat leaders. And this is where there's a growing gap between Democrat voters and Democrat politicians. We need to take advantage of that gap. This is the takeaway. This is the action item. We need to make sure to continue to explain to our normie friends, the ones that are watching CNN or MSNBC or even Fox News, we need to make sure that they understand that this problem is not done. Just because President Trump put in some good policies, just because Tom Homan is out there and ICE is out there and Kristi Noem is out there, doesn't mean that we have to say, okay, mission accomplished. Let's move on to something else. This is a huge problem. Americans realize it. It needs to be solved, but Democrats are still not ready to embrace. Chris Van Hollen is still flying down to El Salvador to try to make a plea for Maryland man. It's a joke, but we need to make sure that the joke is on them. Because come election time, come midterm elections, we need to make sure that, number one, they're still latching on to it, to open borders, to all that stuff, they being Democrat politicians. And number two, that the American people, including Democrats, because they are apparently more open to this now, that the American people realize that the problem is not solved. Dollar crashes on Powell removal speculation, but gold soars to an all-time high. And Bitcoin suddenly spiked, this according to Tyler Durden over at Zero Hedge, the great financial blog. This segment must be brought to you by JDRGold.com and JDRCrypto.com. Of course, it has to be because, well, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about gold and crypto and the dollar and the economy and finance. Because I have these sponsors, though, I was not able to last week when I was talking about this very topic I was not able to tell people, hey, go buy gold, go buy Bitcoin. I couldn't say that because I'm not a financial advisor, so I can't give financial advice, and I have sponsors that are far better at this stuff than I am. So I just point people in that direction. But with that said, I would have said those things. I would love to have said, guys, this is getting crazy, and writing's on the wall. And even though I keep my finger on the pulse of the economy, and I read more about financial news and the economy than probably your average Wall Street trader, anybody could have seen this coming. Once the word was out that Jerome Powell was in President Trump's crosshairs, well, that's going to charge something. And as I noted in my article, I tried to warn people that this was exactly what was going to happen. According to an article over at Zero Hedge, which we have cross-posted over at AmericanPoliticalReport.com, what was a miserable shortened week for the U.S. dollar has gone from bad to worse in early Asia trading, when the dollar index suddenly collapsed to a fresh 3-year low. While there is no specific catalyst for the sudden collapse in the illiquid early Asian session, which sees many countries on extended Easter holiday, Bloomberg quotes traders that hedge funds are selling the dollar against virtually any currencies after National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett said Friday that President Donald Trump is still exploring ways to remove Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, according to the traders. Let's go ahead and pull this one up. As you can see, the dollar today is right around where it was early 2022, right around the attempt, or the pretend attempt, to boost the economy after the pandemic, whatever. So what happened? What did he say? He was asked by a reporter, "Hey, is Trump still going to try to get rid of Powell?" And Hassett said, "The president and his team will continue to study that." Now, was this a snafu? I mean, could he have just said, I don't know, or no, or whatever? No, he says we're looking into it. We're going to try to find legal ways to do this, because technically speaking, it is going to be challenging for President Trump to just fire the Federal Reserve Chairman, Jerome Powell. But they're looking into ways. And even that was enough to send markets flying, just as I predicted, by the way. Hassett then suggested accurately that the Fed, under Powell, who was appointed by Trump during his first term, had acted politically to benefit Democrats. And there's a long quote from him. Basically, he's just saying, look, they tried to hurt Trump. They raised rates right around the time when Trump was coming in, and except they weren't doing anything or acting. They were basically silent when it came to Joe Biden's clearly inflationary money printing. Runaway spending, as he calls it. Hassett is, of course, correct, as Zero Hedge pointed out just 2 weeks ago. You can see the chart on the screen there, just basically easier Fed policy under Biden, much harder Fed policy under Trump. It reminds me of, there's a scene in the movie Gladiator that where Maximus is fighting the old champion that had survived, and they had tigers, okay? Tigers in the stadium. And the guys had their chains, right? And so the tigers would come over and try to get to the guys. They were fighting each other, but then the tigers were trying to get them as well. And whenever the tiger was getting close to the bad guy that the emperor wanted to win, they would pull back on the chain so that the tiger couldn't get to him. But as soon as Maximus was on the ground, they would let the tigers loose and have them go at it. So Maximus was fighting the champion with his on one hand, but he's also got to fight the guys and the tigers on the other side. That's what President Trump is doing right now. I'm not trying to compare him to a fictional character here. Well, I guess I am. And I think it's an accurate interpretation of how the Fed is how they react to Democrats versus Republicans, at least under Jerome Powell. As Bank of America's Michael Hartnett pointed out on Friday, the Fed cut 50 basis points in September when stock market at a record high. Atlanta Fed was forecasting a plus 3% U.S. GDP growth. But Fed is now determined not to cut rates after a 20% market plunge. It makes no sense. And of course, the Atlanta Fed is now forecasting a negative 3% GDP growth. And as former New York Fed President Bill Dudley made crystal clear all the way back in 2019, and I'm not going to read that. Basically, he's just saying I remember the article very well. He was saying that the central bank should not provide offsetting stimulus to Trump's trade war with China. In other words, don't help Trump at all. Everybody's just out to get Trump in the Fed. Everybody in leftist economics, and even some on the right, to be clear. This isn't just left versus right. President Trump is going into uncharted territory, and he's got a lot of people scared. He's got a lot of people concerned, including some conservatives. So it's not like, oh, this is universally just Democrats. It really is about being anti-Trump more so than pro-Democrat. But since the market is terrified of the truth, especially if it means that Trump could take monetary policy actions into his own hands, the result has been a wholesale liquidation of all main currency pairs, with the euro jumping to 3-year highs, even though Europe's economy remains an unmitigated disaster, and even though the surge in the euro will make Europe's modest recession into a brutal one. The yen is surging 11% from its January lows and at just over $141, the highest it has been against the dollar since the summer of 2023. And of course, gold, which is storming to new record highs this evening and pretty much every evening, spiking above $3,373. Its dip last week now a distant memory. Yes, it is. Yet, and this is the important part, yet none of these moves are surprising to anyone who read, as we repeatedly urged, and so did I, the Mir and Mar-a-Lago paper. Yes, the plunge in the dollar is just what the administration quietly wants. They have repeatedly stated that they want a strong dollar in the long term, but certainly not in the short, when the collapse in the greenbacks will actually boost U.S. exports. It'll make it easier for him to negotiate with the various trade partners that are coming to the table now. Ironically, if Powell will not cut rates to ease financial conditions, Trump's repeated browbeating of the Fed chair and threats to fire him will crash the dollar low enough to where Trump will get his financial easing one way or the other. It's going to happen. And like I said, I don't know. Is Trump, is he a genius? Is he blessed? Is he guided? Or we don't know. We don't know for sure. Maybe some of us do. Still, there was one notable outlier in tonight's dollar sell-off: Bitcoin. While previously any plunge in the dollar, and by extension surge in the yen, would batter what little is left of the carry trade, hammering tech stocks and cryptos, tonight we finally saw a regime shift. And after flatlining initially, a burst of buying pushed Bitcoin almost $2,000 higher, above $87,000, and its biggest one-day move since Liberation Day. Look at that. Boom. Still not over 100. It's been a little while. We're going on, almost 2 months since it was at least in the mid-90s. But we'll get there. I think it's going to get there. The result is that while Bitcoin had generally tracked the DXY dollar index lower for much of 2025, the last few weeks and certainly Sunday night have seen a very tangible snap in that relationship. So, yeah, let's pull this one up. So you can see, there we go. So you can see the red is the dollar, and the green or blue or whatever color that is Bitcoin. It is, it was relatively well aligned up until earlier this month. So that's when they started splitting. Dollar started going down, Bitcoin started going up, and it's just getting further and further apart. Wow, this breach in the right correlation between the two suggests that with gold approaching ridiculous prices, the next flight to safety away from the collapsing dollar will be Bitcoin after all. It's only a matter of time before all other central banks unleash a money printing frenzy to hammer their own currencies. And since all Bitcoin needs is a little unexpected upside to spark a huge short squeeze and get the momentum trades piling on, should today's phase reversal sustain for a few days, we may see new all-time highs in Bitcoin in a very short time. That's not me giving financial advice, reading it straight from Zero Hedge. But if you are ready to get in and you need crypto experts to manage your account, you should go to jdrcrypto.com. Whether you can do cash, you can do a rollover transfer of your current retirement accounts, get them backed by Bitcoin, have an upside to your investment, have your life savings and your wealth actually grow, your retirement grow. Yeah, jdrcrypto.com. But wait, Because the real fun for non-fiat asset will start once the central banks, such as the BOJ and ECB, can no longer just sit and watch as the dollar disintegrates, pushing their own currencies into the stratosphere and killing their economies, and they retaliate by restarting the next round of global fiat debasement, first by slashing rates and then by restarting the money printer. Rinse, repeat. This is ugly. I mean, it really is. This is an ugly condition for the American economy and the global economy, but it's a necessary ugliness. We have to get our trade relationships balanced. We have to get them, and that's not necessarily, I'm not shooting for pure trade balance. What I'm shooting for is fairness. What I would like President Trump to see, what I believe he wants to see, is that Americans are not getting shafted by their own government, making horrible trade decisions with every other country out there, that we're not just a piggy bank, say, oh, okay, well, I guess we'll get a little bit screwed, but hey, we're the big guys, so we can accept that. No, look, there's a lot of parity in the world today when it comes to finances, when it comes to the economy. We're no longer in a position where we can say, well, we can suffer a little bit for exchange for this or that or the other. Whatever. I'm not even going to get into the conspiracies about why our trade deals are so lopsided against us. That's for another show. But I will say this, that we are in a state of flux. The economy is in a state of flux. We have a lot of uncertainty ahead. And it behooves us, I would say, as individuals and as a nation, to be very cautious with what we're doing, very cautious with our money, to tighten up a bit. And I know that runs counter to what President Trump would say. He'll tell you, hey, go buy, but make sure you buy American. And I agree, but I'm not there just yet. I want to see what happens first between now and we'll say the end of May. Mid to end of May, we will have a clearer picture of just how quickly President Trump is going to be able to get all of these trade deals done. But we don't know what we don't know when it comes to the outside factors that are going to try to prevent it. We don't know what the Fed's going to do. They could try to derail him. They are trying to derail him. We don't know what foreign markets are going to do, foreign countries are going to do. We can speculate, but you can never know for sure. Lest we forget, I mean, I don't think that crazy actions are off the table for just about anybody. We always say, oh, look at Japan. Japan was back in World War II, Japan launched an attack because they knew that we were going to get into the war. That's not true. I know that's what I think popular history says. But reality is Japan was backed into a corner financially because we had cut off their oil. We said, hey, we're not going to, until you guys come to the table, we're not going to send you any more oil. And at the time, they had no other way to get oil, and they were in the middle of a war. So it's sort of like, well, we have two options. We could either come to the table or do something crazy like bomb Pearl Harbor, and they obviously took the second option. It wasn't based upon, some strange military strategy. It was based upon desperation. And as President Trump makes other nations and other world leaders desperate, there's a chance that they could do something crazy. So that's the only reason I'm all for supporting the president, supporting our nation, and pushing forward with strong fiscal policies. I love it, and I am all in favor of bringing manufacturing and business back to the United States of America, bringing jobs back, and all of that good stuff. Great, awesome. I'm ready to go. Buy American, you betcha. I never stopped. I've been buying American since like the 80s. So don't even say, oh, well, now it's not. No. Point being is that I don't like fear-mongering. I don't like people to be scared of anything. I would just recommend, again, not a financial advisor, but I would recommend strongly that you be very cautious with your money. Perhaps seek higher ground with any opportunity that comes along. World Economic Forum Chairman Klaus Schwab has abruptly stepped down, effective immediately. I love being right sometimes, not when I'm talking about negative things, but in this case, I said a couple of weeks ago that when they first announced that they would be seeking a replacement and they would have somebody in place by the end of 2026, I said there's no way. If they're making the announcement now, that means that he's gone soon. No later than the end of 2025, but probably very soon. And of course, I was right. That's how the globalists think. They put it out there and then they follow up. World Economic Forum announces governance transition. This is according to, you can find this over at weforum.org, a website, by the way, that I would never want you to go to unless you're doing Oppo research or something. Klaus Schwab, chairman of the board of trustees of the World Economic Forum, has informed the board that, quote, following my recent announcement and as I enter my 88th year, I've decided to step down from the position of chair and as a member of the board of trustees and with immediate effect. That means he's gone completely. He's done. He is out of there. And we have to wonder at least a little bit why. Why so abruptly? Is it a medical reason? At 88 years old, that seems to be a very likely scenario. And is there something else afoot? When you're dealing with the globalist elite cabal, you never know. We'll keep our eyes open on this, especially for his interim replacement. Let's continue with the article first. At an extraordinary board meeting on the 20th of April, the Board of Trustees took note of the resignation of Klaus Schwab in accordance with the forum's rules and regulations. The board unanimously appointed Vice Chairman Peter Brabeck-Latmata as chairman ad interim. It also established a search committee for the selection of a future chair. Now, who is this guy? Peter Brabeck-Latmata. He is an Austrian businessman. He is the chairman emeritus, the former chairman and CEO of the Nestle Group, and former chairman of Formula One. He also sits on the board, or has sat on the board, of Credit Suisse, L'Oreal, and ExxonMobil. Seems like he's got a pretty diverse resume. Now, I'm not going to speculate about him until we know more. I know that he made some waves back, 2 decades ago. He was in this documentary talking about water, and he was saying there's really only two choices. You have the what he called the extremists who want water to be considered like a human right, and then you have people like him who want water to be like a foodstuff. In other words, it's a commodity, something you get charged for. And he got a lot of everybody's like, oh wow, you're such a capitalist, communist, fascist, Nazi. Well, he had to come back and say, look, I'm referring to those who would take advantage of free water. As far as for drinking water or for hygiene, then yes, that should be a human right. Now, it seems as if, at least over the last 2 decades, his perspectives have evolved, at least enough to where he can be vice chair and now interim chair of the World Economic Forum. I don't know what's going to come from this, but anytime there's movement within an organization such as the World Economic Forum, we have to watch very closely. And for those who want to cheer and say, oh, yay, Klaus Schwab, ding dong, the witch is dead. Well, keep in mind, generally speaking, whenever we have regime changes such as this, when the globalists are still in control, whoever's going to be next is going to be worse.